Hey, Swain, you like a little Warhammer, don't you? You like that grim dark, the eternal war?
I do.
Well, then you need to check out Dawn of War. It's back to redefine real-time strategy gaming and offer the most fun you can have with Warhammer 40K. It's built on 12 years of critically acclaimed gameplay. Dawn of War 3 combines the epic scale of the first Dawn of War with all the customization and elite heroes of Dawn of War 2. The result is a best-in-class real-time strategy that offers the strategic experience, stunning visuals, and catastrophic surprises the players have come to expect. So go check it out, dawnofwar.com. Buy it today. That's dawnofwar.com.
On to the show.
I've got a golden ticket. I've got a golden ticket.
Does that make
what is happening?
The uncle in this situation?
Yeah, which of my elderly uncles and grandparents that all share one bed do you want to be swaying? No, we're not going to Charlie's Chocolate Factory. We're going to...
Bones has got cholera.
Oh, poor Bonesy. I will bring you back some chocolate from the Magic Chocolate Factory, or I'll just see you on May 18th at the Destiny 2 reveal. Lucky us. Lucky dogs. We gotta go.
Well, hello, Swain.
Whoa!
How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Can't keep me out of the loop if I start it.
Yeah, I got startled. Didn't know what was happening. Birds, how are you?
I'm good, thank you for asking. Here's the thing, Bones, you can still be left entirely out of the loop because somebody's got to ask you.
But I already got the talk.
Yeah, fair. I'm feeling diplomatic.
My voice has been established.
Okay. Well, then let's move on. Psych. Bonesy, how's it going?
Oh, it's going real good.
End of show.
Yep,
Bye.
there we go. Thank you for listening to the Crucible Radio, the podcast for all things Destiny, PvP. I'm Bones. The most recent person to talk was Swain, and the other one was Birds. And Andrew, you can play a fun prank on the listeners if you just cut the episode around and make Birds the last one to talk. I don't know if this bit's not working. We're going to talk about the Crucible. But first, if that weird intro didn't already make it clear, May 18th brings us the announcement, the reveal, the world's first, the premiere of Destiny 2. And yes, you've heard it correctly. We will be there.
Yup.
Oh my. Cannot wait.
Man.
We get to play it, guys.
There's going to be a slumber party at my house for a few of our friends flying
Literally
in.
all of them.
Yeah. It's going to be me up in my room and then everyone else just sleeping on the floor next to each other, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and all of his aunts and uncles.
Full circle.
The callback already, 3 minutes in. Beautiful. But I'm really excited for that. And then, I guess we get to watch this reveal that everyone will be watching online and then we'll play it a little bit. Personally, I know it sounds like I'm being silly or modest or whatever. I'm most excited for this reveal because I've said this before. I love how Bungie does reveals. They're theatrical. They love the feeling. They know what it means to see something for the first time.
There's going to be a keynote for this.
Yeah. And I've always been super fascinated listening to Bungie talk about their own game. So honestly, like if they wanted to just get up there for 4 hours and just tell me stuff and like maybe the first half an hour is like the gameplay and everything. And then they're like, so yeah, the rest of it is just chit chatting. If you want to stick around, I'd sit there the whole time.
In a way, it's kind of not real for me. Like there's going to come a moment where we're sitting in a darkened auditorium and in front of us, there's a stage with a couch and a chair and a giant projection screen and the lights are going to go down and someone's going to walk out on the stage and all of a sudden it's going to be real. And, we get to see what the next chapter of this game looks like.
I'm going to cry a little bit. I cry at a lot of things and I'm going to cry at this thing. You can count on that.
Well, May 18th isn't just this awesome thing where we're all going to play Destiny 2. That weekend is a little special for us because it's going to be episode 100. It just magically synced up that episode 100 involves Destiny 2 gameplay reveal.
Yep.
We'll be there with all these content creators, so we'll have a chance to talk to them as well. Little snippets, live stuff. So, even in advance, pardon our dust. It will not sound the best, but it'll be interesting reactions from all the Destiny content creators you love and their first reactions to Destiny 2, hopefully. What else? What else are we doing, guys? That's not it.
Let's keep it vague for now because we don't know which of these great ideas we're going to have to end up cutting. But I think it's safe to say there will be a couple things that a couple special moments. Maybe we've done something like them on the show before, but because they take a ton of effort to make, we don't do them very often.
Now we're gonna jam them all into
something
one
like
episode.
that is gonna go into this likely 2.5 hour episode. Let's leave it at that. Let your imagination run wild and just imagine the Law and Order sound. Dun dun. No one run. Law and Order. Go back and listen to the first one. It's fine. But we got some other stuff. Planned.
Guys, the Crucible. What have you been doing the past week in the Crucible?
I've been using that new vendor palindrome, and if you don't buy it,
you literally, if you're listening to this on Monday, go get it.
If you don't buy this gun, I don't know how you can consider the first 3 years of Destiny worth it. Like it has just effectively ended my grind. I've been on such a grind, just doing all the quartermaster bounties and
hand
playing
bounties,
Clash and Rift and whatever. Just like, let me rank up and go talk to Shax. In hundreds of rank ups, I've not been given a palindrome from Shax, which is certainly heartbreaking. But I was like, you only need one. I don't need multiple palindromes. I only need that one. Little did I know that Arcita across the hallway, I know his name because I played him one time in a play that I wrote. His name's Arcita, but he had the God roll. And like we said on Twitter, Crucible Radio does not say the God roll because that's a common buzzword thrown out for maybe less quality guns. This one, to me and to us, it truly is the roll. I think the rangefinder hidden hand rifled would certainly see some play from me. That's literally the only other hand cannon combination I can think of right now that would see more play than this because it has rifled, rangefinder, and Icarus. And after the most recent hand cannon change, rangefinder does help you reach the most with your hand cannon, which can be pretty noticeable. Not game drastically effective. It's the combination of Icarus, to me, the perk that gives hand cannons increased air accuracy, which is already a huge part of their game, more so than any other primary. And it's unreal. I got a 3-tap from the sky. Like all 3 bullets left my palindrome while I was in the air, and I 3-tapped them, and I'm just like, yeah, this is it. This is the gun.
This is the height of luxury.
Yeah, seriously. That's what it is. It's like, oh my God, I am not playing with my luck in the chamber rifled but exhumed Ias Luna, and I'm not playing with the reactive outlaw, but like it doesn't have the max range. Like, this is it.
Yeah, we had a question on Twitter that was like, why is Icarus? Why I thought Icarus wasn't that great, and someone was asked that question, and simply is that hand cannons already have really good in-air accuracy, way more than any other primary, and to increase that and make it even more deadly in the air, it's just that's the gun that becomes the gun to use. Nothing else like touches it with that much in-air accuracy.
Yep.
And that allows you in this very mobile game of Destiny to shoot and run at the same time and jump and fly through the air and attack from different angles that people don't expect you from. That's the advantage.
When you're in a primary battle and you're both absolute and you're hiding behind a box and you think, I can't go left, I can't go right. Let me just do a little hop up over the box and peek right over top. And just to be able to even hip fired, take that shot in the air and finish it off without ever really giving them an opening had you charged out of cover. It's a great feeling. And you need a special hand cannon to do it. Well, it helps. It helps to have a special hand cannon.
The hand cannon. It's like better than Zer.
It is. I've been messing around on my alt account as people know by now. Not that I'm getting those running out of medals anymore because matchmaking is kind of evened out, but it's kind of fun to just play for something where it's like, oh, cool, 3 coins. That's actually nice to get. got that palindrome on that account too, and I'm like, I'm done.
I don't need another primary.
I got the sidearm. I got a Godroll Matador already, and I got Winged Word from the Sniper Bounty, and I'm like, I'm good. That's it.
All right, well, Swain, what about you? What have you been up to in Destiny this week?
I mean, mostly it's just been, raids. I really, really want a Praetorian foil, so I've been doing Vault of Glass this week.
Because my alt got one of those too.
The raid of the week, yeah, of course. You're welcome for helping you get through that that raid with your low light level.
Hey, I was doing just fine.
Yeah, you were. But yeah, just doing the Vault of Glass, playing. It's Realm Supremacy this week, so I've been enjoying that. And we also we obviously doing 6s because that's where I can ultimately relax and kind of just work through it. But we had a little bit of a twab this week. Nothing too crazy. Them trying to say that they're full steam ahead for Destiny 2. That's kind of all of their focus. A little bit of rumors about possibly something else, but that's actually not happening. The biggest thing in there is that Iron Banner this upcoming week is going to be Mayhem Clash, which is just ridiculous.
Oh boy.
If you are a fan of ridiculous amounts of supers and nothing really mattering and lots of golden guns, boy, do I have something for you.
Oh, see, you mentioned Golden Gun, and I think I've mentioned this on the show. I get weird in Mayhem because when you have essentially infinite grenades to spam, you're not incentivized to run out into the mix, especially if you have, a great defensive super like Golden Gun. I don't know. I just get stuck into these weird loops where I'm running like Spines of Ahamkara and I'm just throwing trip mines into a blind corner, just setting them up. If somebody shoots them, I just throw another one right there. And as soon as my super's charged, I peek out, I get my 3 kills and then just go back to hiding. Like I can't bring myself because you're going to run up into defenders who are going to shut you down. You're going to run into constant roaming supers. So you need a little bit of a gap there. And so now I'm just like off in a corner, just like chucking Axion bolts as fast as I can make them and thinking, well, I'm contributing. At least I'm not dying. Staying alive.
The Sunbreaker tip is Simmering Flames. Run Simmering Flames and just hold on to your super for a little bit and it just immediately recharges. So just
use the thermite ones and just cover the floor in fire. You get 2 kills the whole game, but it looks amazing.
Burn.
You literally do not have to wait for it to reload, like to recharge. You can just throw and keep throwing as quick as you can throw.
That's excessive.
A little bit.
Worth pointing out too that this Iron Banner coming up, we are going to have Clever Dragon back in the loot pool. I'm kind of wondering at the rate Bungie's been going with these incredible rolls, if they're just going to make the vendor Clever Dragon the perfect role. I think there's probably some arguments you can make as to what the ideal role on this gun is. But hey, good chance to play some Mayhem if you don't, and maybe grind out a couple interesting rolls on one of those high rate of fire pulse rifles.
Yep. Hey, we talked about it last week. Go find yourself a weird roll and try it out.
Last week, we had asked for some questions on Twitter, and we actually didn't get to them because we had stuff to talk about last week. It's funny how that happens. This week, we're going to answer some of those before our lovely, lovely guest returning for his 5th or 6th or 7th time on the show. But anyways, should we jump into some of these cues?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, we got a few good ones here. From JS Fisherman, how do you stop roaming supers now if you're a fresh spawn?
Well, I suppose if you have a high impact sniper rifle that can shut down supers, you can look around really quick and try and land that. I mean, I think it's good advice in general to say that every time you spawn without having to turn, without having to do anything, you should immediately identify where you are on the map. You should not need a lot of cues to kind of figure out which spawn you've landed in. There's a limited number of spawns. And so getting that situational awareness as fast as possible is important. But hey, if there's a Stormcaller breathing down your neck, I don't know, run,
I was gonna say, there's two things. One is when you die, or if you die before you get touched by that super, or like you die just as someone pops their roaming super, wait, don't respawn right away. Who knows, you may respawn very close to them. So holding off, this will prevent, the basis of the question. You just kind of waiting and for those 10 seconds to pop up, and then you respawn. The other thing is literally just run away. If you can extend this super from them and like make them chase you down, you're essentially making them run it out. And, depending on the play style and depending on the skill level of that person, they may just spend all of their time focusing just on you, and then they'll realize they ran out of super. You can turn around and blap them in the face.
There's a theoretical answer to this that I have. So it doesn't exist now, but it could. I was on a team on Clash where we all just sort of turned and focus fired a super. It just happened to be that me and 3 or 4 other players on this team decided, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to make it out of here, but I'm going to put as much primary fire into this Stormcaller as I can. And we did that a couple times to that Storm and to a Sunbreaker on the other team. And it worked great. Like, we didn't have to move. We didn't have to panic. We just heard the Storm go off. We all turned and looked at that doorway, and it blinked once right out of the door and then just got melted. And it was just like, all right, great, done. So if collectively players say, I'm going to try to team fire these supers more as opposed to do nothing, give up, or just totally panic and run in the opposite direction, kind of hurt them where you need them to go. If you are going to get chased down and you might not make it away from that storm, at least draw them into a spot where they're out in the open, where your teammates can see them and fire them down. Because if people do collectively focus fire a super, they do not hold up under pressure from 3 primaries.
Yeah, usually I'll try and put, if I hear a roaming super pop, whatever room I'm in, I'm going to try and find the back of the room or the furthest from the door I think they're going to come through, and just start firing. Literally, before they even come through the door, put your gun and fire towards that door.
Yep.
I mean, I think part of this too, past couple weeks I've been talking about dusting off my Warlock and my Titan. If you have a fear of roaming supers, the absolute best thing you can do is to play those subclasses and realize that, a Sunbreaker is not invincible. A Stormcaller is not invincible. They can be kind of hard to kill, but that there's all sorts of ways those super usages can go wrong. And, maybe they get 1 kill, maybe they get no kills. And if you're familiar with that, if you sort of know what they're hoping that you don't do that makes their super use a little bit more difficult, you're just going to have a much quicker intuitive sense of what the right response is for whatever situation you're in.
Mm-hmm. If you're like me, you get blink striked out of your super twice in one game, and you have to take a very deep breath.
We'll learn more about that later. Next question from the Cryptic Slug. Do you believe in the perk Take a Knee?
Believe in it? Like if it's Santa Claus?
Have you ever seen it?
I've never seen it. I've seen other people with it.
Man, I honestly, this is one that got my mind changed on it, because
I know where you're going.
I remember, just like when it first came out, it was like, all right, there are so many other better perks I could have gotten when I'm going to use this. It's not like I'm crouch walking around the map. But then I think a couple people really discovered how big the boost it gives. And there really are some scenarios where being in a crouch position, especially considering if you're in a slide, which I believe if it's long enough will trigger this perk, where it really is worth the boost. And if you're using a Scuff controller or you're using Puppeteer, that gives you easier access to crouching, just as part of your strafing, try not to get hit style. That, maybe there's something to it. It's definitely a situational perk. You have to embrace the perk to really get some benefit out of it. But I'm not going to feel too bad if I get the right gun with Take a Knee on it.
Yeah, the one person that showed me how ridiculous this is Keen. Keen uses Take a Knee in a very interesting way that I didn't even think about when you first got it. But he slides and uses the sniper like a shotgun. And because the slide technically counts as you taking a knee, the aim assist on it is crazy. Just crazy ridiculous. So that's one way to use it. And like the perk is, you're not going to find yourself using this perk all the time. It's not like hidden hand. It's not something you have to, you don't have to actively think about. But if you want a weird roll that you want to give a shot at and have some weird fun with, Take a Knee for sure.
Yeah, it's okay.
There you go.
Done
Hot takes
deal.
by Bones.
Yeah, I would say you're going to want to make sure that gun has got some real choice perks on it to balance out what is a pretty specifically situational one.
Okay, this next question I just picked out because it's kind of fun for us rather than like a real
I
deep,
like when
deep
they're
dig.
fun.
Okay, so this is from Lord of the Fly, and he asks, so many maps tend to suck for certain game types. Name your favorite and least favorite maps for Clash, Control, Trials, or Scrims, etc.
Could we just say like Black Shield for almost everything?
For every least favorite
kind of
list?
fun for... I mean, for like, I enjoy Black Shield for Rumble. Because
it does move a little bit better in Rumble.
It moves around more. You can't be so secure just taking over inside. But real pain in the neck. I would say one that irks me specifically for Control is Twilight Gap. Just because that B point is so difficult to defend by yourself, and so if your teammate just forgot that capturing B is important, and you're sort of doing it by yourself, that one can be a little frustrating. I'd say on the plus side, Rusted Lands is like a perfect control map,
literally the perfect map.
You just have so many different engagement possibilities on each point. Like they're all unique, they all play differently, and they're all. Yeah, they've all got power positions where one person can make big plays.
Yep, man. I was going to say about Black Shield that when you play Black Shield in Control or Rift and there's an actual focal point outside, it's so much better. And it's kind of frustrating when I realize that, or I'm in a Control game and I'm like, oh, this is fun. I'm not even bothered by any bit of this. And it's because putting that control point out there really does draw people away from just camping inside. And you don't get those strong setups. Not that I disagree with that strong setup. I'll use it when I can, but it just has more movement, and it's nice to fight out there because I think there are some fun engagements you can have on Black Shield.
Yeah, I very much enjoy Rumble on Cauldron. I played a Rumble match right before we recorded tonight on Cauldron, and so much fun.
Oh yeah,
Cauldron really has come up to be one of my favorites. It's just. It feels really good. I like the engagement distances, and it's just it's got a lot of movement. You can really fly around. I love the longer shooting on the outsides.
Predictions there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well. It's a good map for callouts. Like really clear, not too big in the sense that you can say a room and people aren't super confused. Like, well, where in that room? Or that's like half the map. I think the way it's structured and split off into pretty much 4 or 5 major areas makes it play really well.
I've got one that you guys, I imagine, at least Bonesy, you'll probably disagree with. One of my least favorite maps for threes, like when I see it come up in the rotation, I just go, ugh, is Bannerfall. I know some people love Bannerfall. I think it's got a lot of pros as like a great trials map. But practically speaking, when you're playing it in threes, there's a lot of wide open spaces with, minimal or limited cover. But the transitions between those spaces are just these tiny chokes. And I don't really snipe. It's just not something I try and keep up in my repertoire these days. So to be in a situation where my hand cannon isn't really doing work, I can't really, it's tough to kind of bait people into the chokes when there's so many, it's just such a big map and so many ways to move around that I find just, you go and peek and you get sniped by someone who's camping behind the tree. That's fine. Maybe that's the way to win, but it's just not a fun one for me.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a change with Burning Shrine. I used to really like Burning Shrine.
What?
I did.
You no longer like it?
I don't think I like it as much, especially for
blasphemy.
Especially for like trials, though. Simply because like the way hand cannons work now with their range, it's not enough for that map. You do not have enough like room to shoot people on the outside or make contact with people on the outside with just a hand cannon anymore. But once you get inside, it's the perfect gun for inside. So you got these like alternating play styles between some groups where they want to stay outside, they don't want to do anything, and then your primary choice is very confusing. But yeah, it's changed, and it may also be the amount of times it's been the trials map. I'm just like, okay, enough of that.
I don't have any strong words against either of those maps. Few things make me frustrated anymore. I just don't like the look of dungeons. I'll say it for the 300th time. I didn't want to play Trials on that, not because I didn't think it would work, but because it looks ugly. And Bannerfall, on the other hand, is a beautiful map. I love outdoorsy, nice daytime maps. So give me that any day. Okay, good question. Yeah, this next question is a little more detailed, and it's from Matthew, one of our patrons, and it's a really good question. I'm gonna have to cut it up a little bit just to pull out the important parts, but this is big. So Matthew says, I'm really trying to work on my fast, contextualized decision making in threes or elimination, like trials at the moment. For ages, my main focus has been staying alive, just stay alive. Now I'm trying to know when it's worth to push and show myself, or when it's beneficial for my teammates to take the final bullet. I often back down and end up completely unintentionally leaving a teammate out to dry if they're expecting me to keep pushing, but I also don't want to die unnecessarily. Okay, so this is about thinking about engagements and when to push and when to stay and when to play safe. And this is really tough to adjust to. This is actually, in my opinion, one of the harder things to figure out as someone less familiar with trials, just because it's about the flow of the game and not necessarily about what guns you're using or how good your aim is. It's just about the decision to start moving or to stop and to hang back. So it's a good question.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, I'm certainly not a trials expert, so take this with a grain of salt. But I find in my experience that there's very few times where the right move is to charge out of cover in a push into the wide open. And for me, that's often an indicator that I'm tilting, that I'm getting impatient. I don't like the standoff. I'm not taking it seriously anymore. So I know that that's usually an issue, and that almost every time I would have been better off surviving, especially in, an elimination game mode where you're down for the count unless someone's able to revive you. A consideration there too is that, if you die in a very inconvenient spot, it makes your ghost that much harder to get to and to safely res. But assuming we're not talking about just the mad dash into the open, but a push, maybe a push into cover, but a push all the same where you're exposed at a new angle. Yeah, that's a toughie.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier. Is team shots are very, very important in those situations, especially in trials. Like, good team shots win trials matches, hands down, every time. But that just requires a very coordinated push from your team and the understanding that you are going to engage, someone somewhere. The biggest thing with that is understanding where your enemies are. That's good radar, awareness, figuring out your map and what's going on the map. You really won't be able to utilize your team shots all that well unless you have those, those great combos.
All right, Bonesy, I know you've got some insight here. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I love this stuff. This is my favorite part of Destiny. I give like two pieces of advice when I'm playing trials with people, and it's basically like you can break up a trials round into two parts. The first part is everything you do before the first kill, and it's super crucial to get that first kill. I mean, you can make some recovery plays, obviously, but you're just in such a better spot So the first part, one thing I really pride myself on is knowing where the team went first. So it's just that first call out. It's not like, they're in that doorway, he's coming through. It's just knowing, did they go left? Did they go to B? Did they go to C? Which half of the map did they take? Did they split up? Do I know if there's one or two? I love finding that out immediately so that my teammates know, don't bother looking at the escalator on last exit. They went inside, they're in the tunnels. Let's get some map control here. So that's really important. But for me, that means getting to that 50-yard line quickly, moving out, picking them up on my radar, and then finding my safe spot. So I'm not really making that aggressive move in their line of sight. I just know where they are. Now, I can tell when I'm not doing it well, when I'm that guy that gets picked first, when I'm like, I just checked that really obvious lane and the sniper was there, and so he got me because I kind of floated to try to get an angle.
Or you like came out from behind the very obvious turn to look outside.
Exactly.
At head level.
Yeah. And it's just about making the smart decision until you get into a good position. So you're not going, well, I'll just check by floating up in the sky on black shield by that one pillar. Because I love getting that first snipe when they float out in the air. So that's a safe move. It's moving quickly and being aggressive and getting to the front lines, but making sure that you're safe once you get there. The second half of a round would be that everything after the first kill. And that's where this comes in, where it's really tricky. Like, did my teammate want me to push? What do I do? Most of the time, keeping pressure is really, really crucial. If you're absolute, if you have no grenade charge whatsoever, or you need to reload your hand cannon too, and everything is not going well for you, please announce that you're like, yeah, I got to back up, or like, I need help over here. That's fine. But if you can keep a little bit of pressure, keep it there. And the final note on that, and it's really simple math. And I think that's the struggle of realizing that sometimes Trials is just a math game and it's not about your personal record or your KD at the end of the kill screen or who got the kill. If there's one guy left, for example, and there's two of you, throw yourselves at them and be smart, move aggressively, but intelligently, use cover and move the air, use whatever you have at your disposal. But it does not matter which one of you dies and which one of you gets the kill. If two of you are going at the Titan in the cafe and you get a melee off and he punches you to death and your teammate gets to clean up with like a one shot from his hand cannon, great. You did your job. It does not matter that you lost.
Don't give him the kung fu scenario where you approach him one at a time and they get the big play, the montage play off on your team.
Yeah, and you can coordinate that. I mean, you got to do it quickly and you got to be ready and your head has to be in the game. So don't back up way over to wherever to reload or hard scope a little bit, be by that door. But I mean, Swain, you and I have done this countless of times playing Trials over 2 years now, where we'll both be on opposite sides of the door and we'll say, ready, go. And we'll both go in. And it's just like that one rush is enough for that guy to say, which one do I aim at? Maybe I can take out one, but that other guy's going to be in my face by the time I get that kill. And we're not kung fu and attacking him one by one. You can't really punch
two people at the same time.
Yeah, he can use discharge on a striker. That's something that can be concerned about. So don't get too close. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it's about realizing that it's just math. And it's like, if I die and Swain gets that kill, great, we won. That is the goal. We won that round. Success.
All right. Well, thank you so much, listeners, for your questions. Please, at any time, you can hit us up on Twitter. You can send us an email, crucibleradio@gmail.com. Ask us some questions. We may not play everyone on the show, but we do try and respond as best we can. We get a lot of them. But what you want to know inspires what we talk about on the show. So please keep them coming. And let's take a little break right here to give a shout out to this week's sponsor, Bonesy. Who do we have to thank for this one?
Hey, guess what? Are you ready to save money and play more games? Gamefly is the best way to buy and rent all of your favorites. At gamefly.com, you pick your favorite games and have them mailed directly to your door. So guess what? This is the leading video game rental service with over 9,000 titles to choose from. You can try them before you buy them, which is cool. And you get to keep them as long as you want if you're just digging Mass Effect and really want to grind away. And you'll never have to worry about late fees and you can cancel at any time. And they offer movie rentals too. This is awesome. So guess what? Again, guess what? Guess what?
What?
Guess what? Thank you for guessing.
Tell me!
I've been asking. Go to gamefly.com/crucible and you start your free premium 30-day trial today, which allows you to check out 2 games and or movies at a time. And you can only get this offer by visiting gamefly.com/crucible. Now go sign up and start playing all your favorites absolutely free for 30 days.
Well, before we get to our interview, everyone, we enjoy doing a thing weekly where we ask people to send us music and then we play it on the show for a I'm forgetting what is the thing that we do?
It's like a split up with tunes.
Like a pause or an interlude.
Yeah,
a tune pause.
Like
music based.
Like a little recession from the show with like music.
Audio.
Musical recession!
Audio.
That sounds so depressing. It's a musical break.
Audio.
It's a musical break.
Music this week from Super Soul Bros, playing classic video game music with a funky ass jazz band. Check them out at supersoulbros.com. Probably gonna be playing some more of these guys, but I want to play some other stuff too. If you're a musician, send me some MP3s. We'd love to play them on the show. Just send an email to crucibleradio@gmail.com. And if you'd like your gameplay featured in the video version of our podcast on YouTube, send us a match. Upload it to YouTube. Send us the link, cruciblerioclips@gmail.com. All right, well, we've got one of our favorite guests back on the show, the returning champion, tied for first, I believe, with most number of appearances on the show, and he's going to help us.
We should really keep track.
We probably should. I don't know. That feels like somebody else's job. But he's up there. He's way up there, and that's because he's the best, and he's always got some insight. I've got a particular question for him today, but first, welcome back to the show, Mr. Sport Psych Steve.
Hey!
Hey, thank you very much for having me back, guys. Looking forward to chatting with you today.
So if you don't know about Steve, which is madness to me, go back and listen to his old episodes. Steve is a professional sports psychologist, and he's helped us many times in the past learn what it means to be an effective human in a high-stress situation and better understand the psychology of tilt and of focus and of preparation. He's a pro. He's up in our game, but I have a specific question this week. I was talking with a listener, Mr. Super Dialic, and he has been tracking his heart rate using his Apple Watch, and he noticed that when he was in particularly clutch situations in games, his heart rate would go absolutely through the roof. He actually gave me a little write-up, so I want to read a snippet of what he sent. He says, "What tends to happen to me is that as soon as we reach the match for the 5th win in a card, things start getting more intense. I really want to win and pour myself into the game 100%. The people I play with regularly are at my skill level, so sometimes I have to pull off 3v1s, sometimes they do. Whenever I'm in a situation where I have to pull through, my heart rate just jumps. I'm usually arresting 60, 70, but in these cases it can go up to 120 beats per minute. It affects me in a few ways, namely my aim will go haywire. I tend to get jumpy and can't aim straight. And my strategic decision-making just goes out the window." And he actually included some data. He actually tracked it and tracked sort of where it matched up in his performance. And we see a little annotation here that his heart rate's around the 80s or so. And then it's the match for the 5th win, a 3v1 kind of clutch. And he's up to 114, 116, all the way up to 120. And that actually persists until he's at about 100. He says, around here, I took a break and had to do some breathing exercises. And now he's back down to his baseline, not quite, but around 80. And then goes back into trials and it starts creeping back up. This is wild to me that, we have these automatic responses, in stressful situations, but you don't always get to sort of choose when they happen. This is something I know Ninja with Noel does heart rate tracking on stream sometimes. This is something I've never even considered. So, Steve, tell me what is going on here, and is there something we should be doing to kind of better prepare and respond to these situations?
My heart.
Yeah. So first off, I love this question. Like when you guys reached out to me and said that you got some data that said, we were recording some heart rate and gameplay and matching it up. That made me pretty excited. And I was like, I can't wait to look at this stuff and to talk a little bit about it and look more into it. So before we get into like the heart rate specifically, I think it's useful to just kind of review what the stress response is first. So if that's all right, we'll chat about that for a second. So, I mean, essentially the stress response is, hormonal releases, and that's what actually leads to your heart rate going up, right? And so that's a good thing for actual stressful situations, right? So you all have probably heard of like the fight or flight response, right?
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So our body does that when we perceive stress and when there actually is stress. So like, there's a bear in front of us, or, somebody takes your child, like the fight or flight response is going to kick in right away. And it's going to help you either, chase after that person or run away from the threat, or engage in some sort of combat. But the problem is that when we fall into that stress response, and we need to make fine motor skill movements and make decisions, that's when things become a little bit more difficult for us.
That sounds about right. I mean, there's this weird thing when you're in that crazy moment where on one hand, it seems like time slows down, but at the same time, it feels like, I'm almost on autopilot. Like I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing. It either happens or it doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into a little bit more detail about as heart rate goes up, some things that happen physiologically in your body. And one of those things actually is that kind of slow down moment that people perceive. So when we get into more detail about how heart rate impacts performance, one of the research articles that I looked into a little bit more, and a book that I have is written by a retired lieutenant colonel from, he worked at the United States Military Academy at West Point. He was a psychology professor. He's also a former Army Ranger. And the name of the book is called On Killing. And so this guy's name is retired Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman. And so what he did was he kind of color-coded a graph to categorize the effects that heart rate has on performance. And just keep in mind, these effects are the result of psychological stress and not physical stress. And that's a key differentiator. So when you're talking about heart rate going up, if you're just running on a treadmill, these are not the types of responses that you might see physiologically in the body. So we're talking about actual psychological stress. So that perceived threat, again, that we just kind of talked about. So when it comes to that, the higher heart rate, eventually it becomes counterproductive, essentially because you're not delivering enough oxygen to the brain. But normally the first color that he uses is white. And white is typically just kind of normal resting. You don't really have any kind of alertness for threats. It's kind of your standard, somewhere between 60 and 80 beats per minute. Now, the next color here is yellow. And there's not necessarily a specific heart rate difference. So it's not necessarily a physiological difference, but it's actually a psychological difference that gets you from white to yellow. And essentially, it's characterized by being more alert. And this yellow area is actually what I think would be most applicable for gamers. And the reason why I say that is because once you hit red, which is the third color, now you're talking about between 115 and 145 for beats per minute. At this point, this is when fine motor skills starts to deteriorate. Interestingly, though, complex motor skills, reaction time, and cognitive functioning actually increase in this specific window. So it's really an interesting parallel here where yellow, you don't have the fine motor skill deterioration, but you're not getting the improvements to reaction time and cognitive functioning. However, when you get up to 115, that fine motor control starts to go down a little bit, but you start to get some more of that reaction time and cognitive functioning increasing.
I mean, I can see why, having increased reaction time, you're jumping out of the way of something or you're running for your life, how that's adaptive and helpful. It does kind of suck that for video games, when you're in that experience and all of your motion is just down to your thumbs and a couple fingers, that it just doesn't seem like that physiological response is really well suited to help you out when you're in that particular kind of clutch situation.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is the data that Super Dialect sent you guys. Right around where it got up to about 120 was where he specifically said like he couldn't aim straight. He was getting a kind of fidgety. And so that 115 beats per minute is sort of a hard line where once you start getting above that 115, you start to get to notice some of that fidgety nature and inability to control the sticks and the paddles and the buttons as well.
So it's kind of like a mini game where you want to maybe find a balance rather than some perfect zone, because you might, I don't know, because I'm thinking in this way, like my whole game is strategy thinking, outplaying, rather than like superb gun skill that makes me perfect at quick scopes. So I feel like I do want those heightened reaction times, but my motor skills, you know what? I'm probably not going to hit that perfect shot. I just want to be in the right place. So I kind of want that balance, and I can definitely see where that comes to play in my Trials games, at least.
And so what's interesting about that, Bones, is you've played this game now that we're in year 3. You've put in so many hours, and the muscle memory at this point for you is pretty much ingrained, right? Like you could clearly play this game very easily without putting a lot of thought into, what button do you need to push to jump? What button do you need to aim down scope? Those sorts of things. And so with training, you actually can overcome some of those deficiencies of moving into the red and still get some of the benefits of being in the red. And that's actually what you see a little bit from pro gamers. So I tried to pull some research and see if this kind of heart rate tracking was done with pro gamers at all. It was hard to find, but I did find some information that said pro gamers can get up to about 160 to 180 beats per minute. Which,
wow.
And that actually compares to about a race car driver, like a NASCAR driver on the track. And they can maintain that 160 to 180 and be sort of in their peak optimal zone, getting all the benefits without seeing too many of the detriments over a shortened period of time.
So does that mean that through experience or training or something, they've somehow transcended
They've harnessed the energy?
Yeah, like they just don't experience the loss of fine motor skill, or are they still feeling it, but it just balances out in their favor at the end, that little bit of APM or whatever that they lose is made up for by how much faster they're thinking through the problem?
So the answer to that is yes. Which
great, thank you.
It's sort of both, Birds. It's that they've overcome some of those deficiencies, and the deficiency itself of the sort of the distortion in the brain where you're moving your hands simultaneously doing different actions actually doesn't impact them as much. And they actually have looked at this a little bit more with PC gamers where one hand is on the keyboard doing something very different than what the other hand is doing on the mouse, which again, we're moving into Destiny 2 now. We're starting to see some PC gamers who are going to be playing Destiny. They might have the upper edge because of playing at the pro level and doing it such a complex task with the keyboard and the mouse. They might actually have a little bit of a benefit just because of that.
That's very interesting. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense, I guess, when I think about it in a sports perspective. I mean, you could have two of the most skilled players, but if one of them has 5 seasons under their belt, then they're going to do great in the championship series, whereas the other guy might not have that experience playing at that sort of intense level. It kind of goes into like the whole clutch factor, right? Like clutch is just getting comfortable when your heart rate goes up because you're in that crazy 1v3 scenario. That's very interesting.
Yeah, very much so. And so, it's one thing to talk about like those really high elite athletes, professionals that can maintain that level. I'm not saying that your average gamer should try to induce some sort of psychological stress so that they bring their heart rate up to, that 115, 145 and play 6 to 12 hours at a time. That would not be a good thing by any means.
A thumbtack.
But there's a couple of things that we can do. Yeah, maybe maybe the thumbtack in the shoe or something like that to overcome their lie detector test, right?
The Costanza approach.
But in reality, what we can do is we can try to overcome that stress response a little bit too. So there's a couple of things that can be done to try to overcome that stress response, which I can tell you about a little bit right now.
Let's hear it.
Do it.
So one of the things is stress is typically due to a perception. I kind of mentioned that earlier. And that can be accurate or inaccurate. So obviously, if there's a significant threat in front of you, you perceive that threat and it's an accurate perception, you're going to go into that fight or flight response, right? But oftentimes we are inaccurate with our perceptions of a threat. And perfect example of this is when you get really anxious, nervous, and psychologically stressed prior to any kind of public speaking, right? So there's not actually a threat there, but our body perceives it as a threat. And so we go through that same motion. Now you ask, how can that be applied to video games and competitive gaming? Well, if we are in a situation where we're down 200 points in a sweats match, or we're in that 1v3 scenario, like the listener had sent you the email about, if we don't perceive that as a threat, we overcome some of the stress response right off the bat.
That's interesting. I think back to early days when I was first getting into Rumble. And Rumble is kind of uniquely stressful in its own way. Maybe not the most stressful situation, but because it is such a race, my first few matches, I'd be exhausted after 2 matches. My heart would be racing. I haven't blinked my eyes the whole match. And I played so much of it that I got to the point where it just felt like playing Clash at that point. I maybe wasn't as concerned about winning, but just the sort of novelty of it went away. I sort of got acclimated to it. And that took away just some of the edge of it or some of the unknown. Probably the same thing with public speaking too. And so I guess I wonder in this case, that's a good thing, right? To not be in that panic state every time you load into a Rumble match. But have I lost something because, I'm just not as on edge? I don't have that bit of edge from the pressure?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I would say is typically when you fall into that, kind of I'm relaxed, I'm not really anxious in this scenario anymore, it's probably due to the repetitions that you've had. You've played it so many times over and over again. You've built that confidence that you realize that this isn't necessarily a threat for you, and you feel like you can overcome that particular challenge. And those could be physical, reps. They could be mental reps using like visualization and imagery, something that we talked about on one of the previous episodes that I was on. But you put yourself in those competitive pressure pack situations enough, it starts to neutralize that stress response. So the difference between putting yourself in those competitive, stressful situations and just, going out and playing the game for 6 to 12 hours at a time is very different. You really need to put yourself in those stressful situations in order to overcome that detrimental stress response. However, Birds, what you're talking about is, did I put myself in a bad way because I don't have that response anymore? And I would say there are things that you can do to increase the alertness a little bit where you're in that yellow and you're not in that relaxed white spot as well. And we can talk about that too.
Sure. It sounds like, it sounds like what you're saying is we're not just entirely at the mercy of our natural responses. How, if I'm a little too relaxed and I need to get into it, how can I sort of bring my focus up, bring my alertness up? Or on the other side, if my heart's racing and I need to kind of get a grip, how do I take it back down? What are the controls here?
Okay. So amping up. One thing that we talked about, again, in a previous episode when I was on here, but we talked about routines, right? You guys remember talking about like pre-performance routines. So those pre-performance routines can get you in that optimal, what we call arousal state. So where your heart rate is manageable, but your alertness is high enough. And so if you can go through one of those pre-performance routines to set yourself up for that particular level of activation and awareness, That's one strategy that you can use to amp up. A second strategy that you can use is kind of simple, but proper sleep and nutrition. So if you're feeling really lethargic, it could be just due to the fact that your body doesn't have the right nutrients and hasn't recovered enough from, the day's work, the gaming session that you did all night, the previous night. And so if you're feeling kind of lethargic, you're not feeling alert, you're not feeling aware of the situation, you don't feel like your reaction time is very high, it could simply be due to poor nutrition or a lack of sleep.
Yeah, that's actually, one of my big things I'm trying to get over when I do play Trials these days is the monotony of it. Is because you play so many tickets and you're like, yeah, I'm less stressed out in a 1v3 scenario, but is that because I'm more confident in myself as a player and I'm going to own these guys? Or is it because who cares at this point? I've done this too many times and I don't need the loot or anything like that. I still want to win, but there is parts where I just feel like, man, if I was more fired up right now, I would play better and I'd probably get my team in the game more and they could feel like they could depend on me because I was in it and stuff like that. But yeah, the monotony can really just weigh down on me sometimes.
Totally. And that's why we try not to eliminate all anxiety and stress because a limited and manageable amount of anxiety and stress actually increases those things that we want, like reaction time, like cognitive decision making, like alertness and visual and spatial awareness. So we don't want to completely eliminate all stress and anxiety. We want to have still a little bit of it so that you don't fall into that trap like you were talking about, Bones.
Right.
I would say that's one of my biggest problems. I get too comfortable and then I don't I forget about all the things I want to learn and focus on. And just do the opposite because I'm just like, oh, yeah, this is just me relaxing and doing the same thing over and over again. And then I realize I'm, feeding and not really paying attention and just dying and dying over and over again.
I mean, Swain, if that's your intent, right? If your intent is just after work, you just want to zone out, you want to chill, you want to play some Destiny, that's perfectly fine, right? But if you're trying to get into sweats or it's Friday and you're trying to get into trials, you might want to utilize, like I said, a pre-performance routine to get yourself amped up so that you refocus. What's the task at hand? What are you doing this for? What do you need to do in order to be successful for it?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I certainly I have that moment where you struggle to say wake up, snap into it, get to that spot. It's tough to do on a dime. But one thing that, and I guess this is kind of a pre-performance routine, one thing that really helps me is finding some high-level gameplay I find inspiring or some really focused instruction, like Keen Koala's Crucible Bootcamp is my go-to, just because it kind of puts me in either someone else's state of mind or puts me in a mind where I want to try and get to that point, try and achieve it, whatever. But it doesn't let me go into just all right, run forward, find someone to kill, die, trade, repeat that Clash can do to you. Okay, so these are some of the ways we can get ourselves amped up. Want to make sure the gas tank is full. What about when you're in the moment and you're too far? You're shaky. You're feeling the adrenaline. You're not contributing in the way you want to, and you need to take it down a notch. What can we do there?
So one of the most common ways, and it's actually one of the ways that again, Super Dialek, when he sent you that email, he mentioned it worked pretty well for him was some breathing exercises. And these are really common. So you can find them, some like Apple Watches and Fitbits. They have their own little apps and programs designed to be able to give you a good breathing cadence. You can certainly go online and find all kinds of different resources, but diaphragmatic breathing in any way is going to be helpful for you to slow down the heart rate, get your focus back on the task at hand, eliminate any kind of that tunnel vision that you may be experiencing, and refocus. And so the diaphragmatic breathing, something that we've talked about in the past, if you remember, you put your hand on your chest, hand on your stomach is sort of the low-tech biofeedback tools. And you really want to slowly bring the air in. You typically want to control it to about a 4 to 5 second cadence, not necessarily holding your breath, but then releasing in a controlled manner the air for about 4 to 5 seconds as well. And continuing that process for about 2 to 3 breaths is typically a good way to start resetting and bring your heart rate back down to a more manageable level.
Crucible Radio hosts and listeners in the future, do you have your hands on your chest and your stomach right now?
Literally always when Steve comes on, I'm doing something physically while listening.
Well, I got one more for you guys to do while you're listening also. So
Great.
if you've got like a bottle of water or Bones, you got your LaCroix or
I do. I literally do.
Okay. Like anything that you can drink, just get something next to you there. And if the guys, if you're listening in the car or wherever you're listening, grab, a bottle of water or something like that. And what I want you to do actually is just take it and take a drink from it, take a sip from it. And then after you put it down, I want you to notice what I just kind of heard in my earpiece here, which is that exhale. A bottle of water or any kind of a drink that's next to you is actually a really helpful cue or reminder for you to breathe. Typically, when you take a sip from anything at all, you typically induce a breath. So it's a great cue. It's a great thing to have a reminder next to wherever you're playing, whether it's your chair or your couch. Leave a drink next to you. And if you feel like you're starting to like lose focus, you're getting too amped up, your heart rate's starting to go up, take a sip of water. It will automatically cause you to just take a breath. And then maybe that's a reminder to take one of those full diaphragmatic breaths, slowly breathe it in for 5 and out for 5.
Nice.
Been on to something with this glass of water here.
It's crazy how simple it is, but you'll see how much it works for you when you start to notice you're starting to go on tilt. You're starting to get a little too anxious. You take a sip of water. It causes you to take a breath. Maybe you take one more diaphragmatic breath after that, and you start to notice that you're already coming back down into a baseline measure, and you get to refocus very easily.
Not to say something fairly obvious, folks, but water specifically, or at least something a little healthier. That's definitely not the excuse to just have Mountain Dew next to you at all times. I feel like I'm no Steve, but I can feel like it does something else to your heart, and you're like, oh, my heart's racing. Great, this will help.
Yeah,
no, not what we're talking about.
Their heart's racing so much. It's because they had 2 Mountain Dews back to back, or they've got their Monster and their 5-hour energy and everything else, and all the caffeine's.
Thank God there's no more Destiny codes on Red Bull. Saving my life here.
Oh my goodness! Well, there's some new stuff out there that's marketed directly for video games, and there's some different mixes of supplements and stuff in there. But it's a really interesting thing to use to amp yourself up when it's necessary, but not to drink like with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I have one last question. Let's say, and I'm sure everyone's been here, where you have the trials ticket, you don't go flawless, you cancel it and pick up another trials ticket, and same thing happens. I've found that in my experience, if you don't make it by that second or third ticket, probably it's not going to happen that session. And I wonder if part of that is from just the being put in that situation where you're clutching, your heart is racing, you come back down, and then you do it again and you come back down. And whether, the repetition of that up and down over and over starts to kind of wear on you to the point where you're just not going to be performing well for the rest of your session. Is that a thing?
Yeah. 100%. I mean, there's mental fatigue that happens here when you induce the stress response. When you get that fight or flight, heart rate starts to go up, adrenaline is pumping through your veins. What eventually happens is you have to eventually come down after that, right? And so the more times you get yourself psychologically stressed, come back down, psychologically stressed, come back down, it becomes much more of a drastic dip. And so the best thing that you can do in those scenarios, honestly, is about a 5 to 10 minute break. Just walking away from the TV screen, letting your eyes sort of just kind of relax. Maybe you grab a drink of water. Maybe you go to the bathroom. Maybe you step outside, get some fresh air. Mentally and physically, you need to kind of get yourself back to a baseline if you're going to continue to go up and down through all those trials cards.
Sounds about right.
Well, I mean, what's interesting about that too is you've got these tournaments coming up, right? So you've got like the FARCOG tournament that you guys have been covering, and over at Guardian Con, there's going to be the tournament going up too. And these guys that play at the very high level with high stress situations over extended period of time, they really have to utilize their breaks in between games. And the people that do that most efficiently are usually the ones that are able to stay on the top. I mean, obviously skill is going to be the the differentiator. But utilizing those breaks effectively and really taking the time to recover is a difference maker in these longer tournaments.
Absolutely.
Hear that? Water and breathing tournament guys.
Sustain your life. Play better.
I came on here and told you the simplest things: drink water and breathe. 2 things that you probably already do.
Well, sometimes I forget
Breathe
things.
water.
Here's the thing, Steve. I am super thirsty and suffocating all the time. Do you have any advice to resolve these problems?
I can't think of a single suggestion that I have for you at this point, Burrs. But if you want to talk about Destiny, I can definitely help you there.
Okay, well, I'm going to collapse and do some research. Let me know next time.
All right, Steve, once again, thank you so much for coming on and getting us through the mental side that we sometimes forget, even though it's so simple and it's always very helpful. Are we going to be seeing you soon?
You better believe it. I'll definitely be down there.
All right. Guardian Con 2017, baby. If you want to say hi to us and Steve, be sure to say hello, and we'll point you to Steve. We know what he looks like. He's a handsome man.
Yeah, and if you're doing the live tournament, you're gonna want this guy's advice. Seek him out.
Get some coaching in before they start.
I would love to talk to those guys. Those are all, I watch them on Twitch when I can, and I talk to a few of them on Twitter and throughout. And I wish all those guys the best. I'm really looking forward to watching the tournament in person. But yeah, man, anybody that wants to reach out, let me know. I'm happy to help.
It's going to be crazy fun. In the meantime, before Guardian Con, where can people find you on the internet if they've got any questions for you?
Best way right now still is my Twitter. I'm pretty active on Twitter still. So Sports Psych NYLI right now. I'm in the process of doing some rebranding, working on launching a website, which I'm hoping to have done by Guardian Con, which will have some more resources and stuff for you on there as well. But as of right now, hit me up on Twitter. That's the best way. Also, the Slack is great. I do my best to stop by there as much as possible. Crucible Radio Slack. I've met some great people through there. Have a little clan that I joined since then as well from the Crucible Radio Slack. So.
Oh, awesome.
Hit me up. Yeah, for sure. If you've got any questions, either on Twitter or Slack, that'd probably be the best.
Right on.
All right.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Another Sports Psych Steve up in the can. Thanks, man.
That's right. Reigning champion. Let's go.
Thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of Crucible Radio. It's been a pleasure recording these for you over the past couple of years or so, and thank you for listening. I did this character like roughly 80 episodes ago, but I forget what he talks about. I don't know what the shtick of the character was. Maybe it was like a late night radio show, but we're recycling content at this point, folks. There's Destiny 2 is not out yet, and I can't wait for it to be released.
It's me, Swain, here for the interview.
Oh, look, it's our very special friend of the show, Italian Swain.
Italian
remember
Swain.
him from episode sometime in December 2016 or 2015, actually.
I love the make of the podcast.
Another fella you might be excited to hear from with us tonight. Birds from the Docks is actually in the studio.
I'm a moving boxes over here.
It's very similar to Italian Swain, but
Birds wants to do the outro. He's going to tell you where to find us.
This is a dock worker. He was interrogated by the police during the Sunbreaker rampage.
What are you talking about over here? I'm moving boxes. Check out the show on the space internet, crucibleradio.com, and Twitter at Crucible Radio. Hey, you jabroni, let me get back.
Leave us an iTunes review. Hey,
leave us an iTunes review.
Would be absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening.
Goodbye. I love you.
Goodbye.
What's up, everyone? Bones here. Do you like podcasts? Do you like chill conversation? Well, me and my co-hosts Swain and Birds put out a bonus podcast every month on Patreon. If you want to check it out and be a part of more awesome stuff, head over to patreon.com/Crucible Radio and join the squad. See you there.